Hello and welcome to the Outpost Originals and Innovators podcast, presented by Anchor Brewing. My name is Michael Coleman, and in this episode we will visit the great state of Texas during the South by Southwest Film and Music Festival hosted at the soon-to-be-open, highly anticipated restaurant, Loro. Loro is an Asian smokehouse and bar brought to you by James Beard award-winning chef Tyson and Aaron Franklin of Franklin Barbecue. Its menu will focus on combining Texan and Asian influences, highlighting smoked meats, sides, craft beer, and batch cocktails. I hope you enjoy.
First of all, I just want to welcome everybody to Loro. It's an incredible opportunity to be here today, as I find we're here to celebrate your guys' achievements of getting to this point of opening this space. And so I'd love to just start off with talking about the first time Loro was mentioned. When was that? What were you guys talking about?
The first time was definitely, we were getting some good progress with the Loro concept. And this is probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I wanted to make sure, because we're opening a smokehouse kind of barbecue type place. I want to talk to Aaron about it. Just one, to let him know out of respect.
He really just wanted to be considerate that they didn't put me out of business.
Yeah, that too, right? And so we had lunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, here's what we're doing. What do you think about it? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? We don't want to compete with you, but we'd rather you get your idea of what's your opinion? And in a perfect world, maybe you could help us, maybe consult or something. Not imagining that it would ever come to fruition.
So what can you say when you guys first started talking? What were some of the initial ideas? What was the hope? What was the intention of opening a space like this?
Well, I think, initially for me, it was like, ooh, this is a while ago. I was like, man, pretty busy. I don't really want to consult or anything. But, hey, I'd love to help out for fun. Because that's what I do. I just, apparently I'm not into making money. But yeah, so then we started calling and talking and writing more. And then we did a dinner at Top Knot up in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I did the ramen night. And that was super fun. And I think that's kind of where it was reborn.
Brisket ramen.
Yep, brisket ramen girl. Mm-hmm.
This is delicious.
When you're thinking of kind of the experience, because so much of coming to a restaurant, coming to a space is the expectation of the person who's going to be your guest for the night. What was the experience you wanted to create, not only aesthetically, the architecture, but what type of food or what would you like to share?
I mean, I think in a perfect world, we kind of combined ideas in a sense of we'd love to have the deliciousness and the draw and the incredible, unique quality of product that Aaron does at Franklin proper, and put that in a new venue, combine that with what we do at Uchi and Uchi Co. and our properties that are already running, and make a new concept that brought them together. In a comfortable space like this, and very inviting, and we're still going to try to push the boundaries with the food, and maybe take that barbecue part of it and make it a little bit more accessible, a little bit more clean, lighter, acidic, feminine, female friendly, possibly.
I can imagine that we were talking before we recorded about the space. The space kind of determines how many people, how many dishes, how big everything's going to be, how much kind of expectation of what you can do within a day. And because this is a lunch menu and a dinner menu, it kind of changes that too. So what can you say, what can you guys share about how this space influences, the size of the space influences everything else down the line?
You want to say something?
Nope. Go for it.
I mean, obviously
I'm not the architect,
Yeah, this is a pretty large space because the location is amazing, and we got the site, and so the patio outdoor seating is beautiful. So it's not a 45-seat restaurant; it's such a pretty huge restaurant. So with that in mind, we're going to talking about volume and being able to produce in real time lunch and dinner, both high quality product. Comes down to menu engineering and the dishes we're going to offer, and what time, lunch or dinner, and lastly, just how are we possibly going to make enough food, right? How many smokers do we need? How we're going to do a brisket, daytime and night, both? What's the menu going to look like?
An idea, yeah.
That one's been a little bit tricky because I don't know if you guys know this, but I run a place that runs out of food in about 10 minutes, and we make a tremendous amount of meat, a lot. About 3,000 pounds a day of just meat, just brisket, actually.
With how many smokers?
We've got 7.
7 smokers.
So we have 1 here.
Yeah, do the math.
It's big. ish. But anyway, yeah, so that was certainly challenging. So the menu kind of went back and forth. Like, all right, well, do we, brisket has two muscles on it. One's leaner, one's fattier. There's no way we could cook enough food to last lunch and dinner. It's just not possible. There's not enough square footage in this building to pull that off. But, getting a little creative, which is fun for me. We could split up the brisket and do the lean part for sandwiches during lunch, do the fattier part for a more composed dish at night and stuff, and kind of be able to stretch out things a little bit. I think the composition helps out a lot with that. But that's pretty cool for me because we just, at Franklin Barbecue, we just make meat, cut meat, sell meat, and that's it.
Yeah, and even when we first started talking, I think when we started talking about partnerships, one of the things I think that Aaron was really drawn to was, okay, I can go into Loro and actually be creative and make things that aren't brisket too. And so hopefully that plays out like we were hoping, because I don't think we want to sell just brisket at Loro. That's not the goal. So
no, I think we'll have a lot of stuff.
We got a lot of stuff.
Like
the
18
bavette steak is
maybe.
amazing. All these different products that we're going to sell here. So not just brisket alone. Should be really creative.
What can you say in terms of, obviously, you guys run your own restaurants in your own ways, and there's a culture to each of those restaurants, the staffing, just the environment. When the two of you came together, how is it similar? How is it different in terms of the culture of Loro? How does it take a little bit from both? Is it completely starting over? How do you imagine that working out?
I think it's a perfect mix of both. Because Uchi and Uchiko are pretty fine dining, and they're only open at dinner. Pretty high end, slightly expensive, not too expensive. And this is not that. This is more, it's bar service, little more affordable, and hopefully we can get different people in here that would never go to Uchi or Uchiko. Maybe people that been to Franklin before, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I think it's kind of almost the perfect match. It's the high end, like the quality and the detail and how articulate the food is from Uchi and Co. and all that stuff, but then it's kind of like the more casual thing of Franklin. We're just like, hey, it's barbecue, y'all, no big deal.
Exactly.
So I think it's a good combo of all those things, attitude-wise and food-wise.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think too, when you're talking about consistency of there's only so much of certain types of dishes, and I think that's kind of the challenge of a space like this. And I think it's exciting because now it's like, well, we're not going to replicate anything we've done before. It's a new opportunity to do something different. So when you think of how big, how wide, when do you have to kind of reel yourself back in? In terms of developing a menu, just describe, not specifics, but thinking of a menu, because that's going to dictate the ingredients and the staffing and everything else that kind of follows also.
Well, the original idea, we had a catchphrase about it. So with Loro, there's in a nutshell, the whole menu is going to be about unique but familiar. So things that people had before, but they never had them. That's the idea. So familiar things, buns and sandwiches and brisket and meats and such, but we wanted to make them very unique. You never had it like that before. So it's kind of like Uchi style kind of thing. And so wouldn't be able to do it without Aaron's talent and some of the people that he has, the people that we have from Uchi and Co. And we've done months of R&D, right?
Yeah,
probably
it's been a while.
2 or 3 months of R&D and just making all these dishes and reps and trying them. And we always sort of think can we do this? To scale, will we be able to pull off 1,000 of these a day? And sometimes we said, nope, scratch it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all about reps and practice.
For both of you, how does Austin influence just the experience? Obviously, barbecue is one thing, Japanese cuisine is another. But here in Austin, I think we're landlocked. So getting, obviously, sourcing the materials, how does that come into play when you think about your menu and also thinking about just cost, pricing, all these kind of things that kind of...
Well, I think, this is actually a pretty active conversation at our restaurant. We don't actually source any Texas beef. Ironically enough, there's a ton of beef, but almost all of it has growth hormones, and we don't use that stuff. So that makes us look elsewhere. But that being said, that there's so much great food being produced and beef, and there's just tons of great stuff everywhere. And the way logistics kind of work, their trucks move. I'm not trying to increase a carbon footprint or anything here, but there's transit happening anyway all the time. So why would you not use that to your advantage and actually get the best product you can?
What can you say?
I love when he says that.
What can you say?
Here, I agree.
What have you found in terms of just even for Uchi, for getting fresh fish? How do you manage across so many properties, or even just think about one? How do you make sure that you're covered so you can manage reservations, numbers, all the turnovers that you're going to be doing?
Uchi's 15 years old now, and over the years, with growth of our team and our talent, we've developed relationships with our buyers and then with the producers, and even down to the fishermen and stuff. So we don't really have to reach that hard to get the product that we need to sell every day. We used to have to call all the time to get it, and now they call us because they have it. And so we sell so much that they're the best customers, and from that, we get the best product, and it's to our guests. And so it's just cyclical like that. And that's what keeps it ongoing every day, and just great product every day. People come back, good product, they come back again, and just it keeps going on and on. I hope that happens here too. You know what I mean?
Go ahead.
I hope that happens here too. If at Loro we sell everything every day, we'll buy more, it'll be fresher, and we'll have contacts like Aaron's contacts, and we'll have the best meat here too.
And
that's the goal.
What he said also for beef, I mean, we order so much of it, 45,000 pounds a month. Like we started off like we used to have to call and be like, oh, can I get this? Can I get that? Nope, sorry. And now there's a lot of cows with my name on them. So I think we can both use that for Loro's advantage pretty easily.
And they're going to have to get some more cows. Right?
We, about 18 months ago.
How do you describe opening a restaurant? I mean, you've done it a few times for Uchi, and Franklin's, I think it continues even...
I've just rebuilt the same restaurant.
Rebuilt the same restaurant, yeah. What can you say? How do you describe opening a restaurant? What's the excitement? What's some of the fears? Even though you guys obviously have established yourselves here, you understand your backyard. But what do you enjoy? What are some of the challenges of opening a new space? What do you think about when doing that?
I mean, this is end of the day. There's only one thing that's important here: is this is Austin, Texas, and so I've been here for 25 years. Aaron's been here for a long time. Neither of us would have the success we have without Austin, and so. When we open a restaurant, we're pretty all in from the get-go, knowing that even like with Loro, our worst day will be the first day we're open, hoping that we improve every day after that. So it's all about the people. I think we've both had some really great people that work for us, and without them, we'd be nothing. And once you realize that, everything gets a little easier.
Aaron, how have you found in terms of going from the beginning of the trailer to an establishment, and now it's just it's part of your story of the experience of going to Franklin's is part of the weight and the community a little bit maybe.
Oh, go on.
Come on. What's different about this for you? Like, what are you excited about in terms of going and having an opportunity? Because I saw you in the kitchen before we started recording. Like, there's, I think, a lot of education and learning in terms of everything that you've gathered from your time at Franklin's that you want to carry over and share with the staff.
Yeah, there's that, but I can also fix things that I didn't do right with Franklin, which is cool because, I mean, it's been 8 years of Franklin, and I've certainly learned a lot. I mean, I'd never opened a restaurant before. I'm still learning. But, so there's that. But also, I think the coolest thing about this for me is I'm not the maintenance man. And I think that's incredible. That really frees up my schedule. But yeah, I mean, like Franklin Barbecue kind of operates on like a real educational level. Like there's no hierarchy really. Like we're all kind of doing it together. And I'm the old cranky guy that drinks his coffee in the mornings, be like, you're too hot, you're doing it wrong, too much salt. But it works really well. So I think, the constant like working with people a little bit or just walking by and just always making the rounds and checking on everybody all the time kind of is working pretty good. So I think it'll kind of, that's kind of what I'll bring to this, just always just kind of tinkering with things. We like to tinker. We like to build things.
He sounds so humble. Here's the thing, Aaron Franklin would not be here right now if he weren't a perfectionist. Like, that's been fun working with him on this project. Like,
this just got awkward. I got to go, guys.
We get in there and we're starting to make food, and he goes from like wearing this hat to changing hats, and then once he sees the food happening, especially like the barbecue or the meat and stuff, he's like pushes people out of the way. He's like, let me show how to do that. And like, so he really knows what he's doing. And when he starts riffing on all the stuff,
nice.
No, I'm serious. About making fire and smoke and acrid smoke and all the things that he knows that I don't know. It's pretty amazing.
That's what I was curious about. Japanese cuisine, barbecue, different fundamentals when it comes to how they share some, but different.
There are a lot of similarities there.
I see a lot of similarities,
right?
Yeah.
That's why I want to talk about what similarities are like, oh, this would be...
perfection.
Yeah.
Just like doing the same thing, repetition, nailing that one thing and making it so perfect.
If he has a smoker that doesn't work properly and it's really not doing well, or it's putting out acrid smoke and it's gonna make the meat taste bad, he doesn't sell the meat and he starts using that smoker. So that's just like, yeah, exactly. That's very Japanese, right? Yeah. Trying to make a perfect piece of whatever. What's fish, meat, same conversation. It's all making bites.
I was looking at the sauce list just alone in terms of the types of flavors that you are going to be capturing in some of these dishes. What's unique about blending the two? Like what comes out of the possibilities for a menu here?
I think that's the sexiest part of it. You know, we have a chef here, James Dumapit, and he used to work with us. He came back to work for us. Another guy named Jack Yas, who came back from Malaysia to work with us. And their experience and the flavors that they provide, so incredibly delicious, and depth of flavor and spice. And again, Loro isn't about just barbecue sauce. Loro is like all of those sauces with meat. So it's a totally different game over here.
Yeah, I think what those guys do, there's an actual term, a technical term in the kitchen for what those guys do, and it's called baller. No, they're incredibly talented. It's insane.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
That's something that's great about Uchi and the Uchi Hospitality Group is that you can carry a lot of your staff and have them kind of get this set up. And also, is there going to be people from Franklin also having an opportunity to work here, do you think?
We can't really spare anybody.
You can't spare any? Yeah.
That was kind of a thing. I was like, all right, I'll teach over here and do this thing. But no, we're not crossing the streams. We've got 6 cooks at our restaurant, and that includes me. Yeah. Like, I can't. That's all we got.
We've had 1 or 2 people, though, that have gone from our side of the fence to the Hatfields and McCoys to the McCoy side of the fence to work with Franklin a little bit, training, too. Though that helps a lot. Actually, our pit master here, Bram, has worked at Franklin.
He worked at the pit room in Houston for a long time. Yeah, super talented.
And so he's
glad to have him.
Sarge over there at Franklin for a little bit, too.
We've been standing around in a parking lot for a while, just watching fires.
From your experience, how long does it take for things to kind of get ironed out when you feel like you can walk away from it? Because obviously when you open a restaurant, you want to be there almost every day, every night, every time of service. How have you found from your experience when it starts to kind of get into its own rhythm and the culture of the staff starts to get established? How long does that take in your mind?
6 months.
8 years. No, kidding. I think 6 months is about right, though.
Yeah, because the first month you're still working stuff out. 2-3 months in, you're starting to figure out things, pull dishes out. There's attrition with the staff, trying to figure out what's selling, what the guest likes. And then lastly, the months 3 to 6 is when you start introducing new dishes, starting to refine the menu and stuff.
That's what I was curious about in terms of changing stuff out. This isn't working. We need to adjust. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Right. Have you found that user feedback is something that you like to listen to early in stages, or is it kind of like you write it down and think about it?
I think you kind of know when you're putting food out if it's really rad or if it's just sort of rad.
Yeah, true.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see with Loro, like, we're pretty confident in what we're going to sell, but we don't know. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But if a dish, we call it a dog. If a dish is a dog, we'll pull it out, right?
It's a good tester, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the unicorn's already off the menu.
Yeah, right? Me too.
It was good, but...
For someone who's not from here, how do you describe the food culture? How has it changed since Franklin's was established? How do you describe it when you first opened the first Uchi? What's happened? Like, if there was any indication of what did happen, like, also what can you foresee for the future of the continuation of kind of the food culture here?
I think you should get that one.
I mean, 2018, since 2000, even the last 10 years, like Austin's booming economy, 150 people move here a day. And those 150 people, a lot of them are really talented people from both sides of the nation. And so this city has just become better and better. The food culture has benefited from that. And so better restaurants, better dining, and across the board, just a much more fun city to live in. Like, people complain about the traffic. I don't care. If the restaurants are better and better experiences and more talented people live in Austin, Texas, I think that's fantastic.
Is there anything to say about South by Southwest since it is going on right now? What is?
Oh God!
How has that changed?
No, just kidding.
How has it changed the city in a whole? Because obviously this is only.
Well, the traffic's terrible.
The traffic's terrible. But in terms of making people more familiar with your backyard, something that you guys are here year round potentially, how has it just kind of changed? Maybe some of the smaller things that were unexpected of like, an impact like South by Southwest coming to town once a year.
Well, I think. From a real neighborhoody standpoint, and as a community, it's cool to see so many people come in, and especially now that there's South By's going on. I mean, it's like every year there's so many rad chefs that come through town and do dinners, and I think it's cool for kind of like the big picture is what South by does, is that it like brings all these people in every year. It's like, oh man, can't wait to see you next year. Can't wait to see you next year. So our community is actually just expanding and getting tighter, but casting a much wider net. But I totally blame South by for that. And music stuff too. I mean, obviously it started with music, a long time ago. But I think just right now the food stuff is, I've probably seen like 10 chefy friends in the last 24 hours that I don't get to see very often, and it's been great.
You got to realize that South by used to just be music.
Right. Yeah.
Right, and so the tech thing's been the last 10 years, and then food stuff and all that. So it's amazing. Like you're saying, the talent that comes here, and we know, and they come in, and we cook with them, and the interactive stuff. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I think even from like starting a business, if I look back when we opened up the trailer, we opened up in December of 2009, and that first March, our first South by, we made enough money hustling barbecue over like 10 days to actually cash flow the restaurant. We only built the restaurant for $12,000, but that was some pretty hard-earned money. So, I mean, if it hadn't been for South by, I mean, every year up until probably about 2 years ago, every year I was building a cooker for the next South by Southwest. So it helped us grow a whole lot.
How do you describe also just the chef culture in general? Like you said, there's a lot more chefs. There's chefs who are in restaurants. There's chefs who are now on the web, on TV. There's so many different avenues for people
Bunch of yahoos on YouTube, that's for sure.
Yahoos.
You have a really good series. If anyone hasn't checked out Aaron's series, you should check it out. It's very informative. I watched a few episodes, I will say. But what can you say just about in terms of the space of chefs now? Like you see, photography has blown the doors open with things like Instagram and social media platforms. What's happened? How has social media, how has the web changed what you guys do in terms of just knowledge, education, sharing of menus? How has it influenced, if at all?
I don't really even send emails. I'm not the guy for that question. I don't gram.
Okay,
I have a grandma,
that's what.
but
I think it's pretty cool to just have a viewpoint real time every day of what other chefs are doing all over the country and the world. So it makes you better. It's more information. I used to just read books and cookbooks and stuff and scour them and try to find ideas, but now it's like real time, right there in your face. Recipes, photographs, video, chefs, all of it. So if I was like 20 years old now, I would be living on the internet, scouring it for food ideas, like for sure.
So lastly, I'd love just ask, what can you say just about today? This is not an opening. This is not a soft opening. This is just kind of opportunity.
we're just hanging out in the building.
We're just hanging
eating
out.
some food and drinking some beers.
This is a pop-up.
Welcome to the world's most awesome pop-up.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, please don't tell anybody. But in terms
It actually isn't Loro at all. This Loro is up the street a couple blocks. We built this for South
this is that
by.
magical unicorn. You're saying? But of the word getting out, when you do open a space, the natural organic kind of process of like word getting out, like, do you guys? Obviously, it's not a case. I don't think it's really an issue for either of you in terms of marketing, of getting the word out. Like for a property like this or a restaurant, like
I think you almost have to try to not market it.
to not market, right?
Let the
But there's a business.
just enough. I mean, but you don't want to overhype something before it even happens. I mean, that's a delicate balance.
I mean, and I think also
You don't want to ruin the experience by like having 1 million people in line the first day.
Yeah.
That's not the goal.
So how do you tend to do a soft like how do you describe like best ideal
very
situation?
Delicately.
Friends and family.
A lot of planning, a lot of the big friends and family, soft opening, making sure that in the beginning that we're prepared, but mainly just like we'd rather like slowly do more people each day over time, slow process growth thing. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, like that.
So for someone who said they never wanted to replicate what they were already doing, like Franklin's, how in a way are you going to not try to do that? Like when do you have to check in and say, is that because of the menu? Is that because of the approach?
It's kind of all of it. I mean, at Franklin Barbecue, I mean, we're a pretty traditional German Czech barbecue joint. I mean, there's like, we'll always cook on offset cookers. We'll always use post oak. We'll always do all these things that are like, we'll always just use salt and pepper because it's about the craft. Because that's a barbecue joint. That's what that is. But this opens up a whole lot of new doors, where you can use, composition. We can have red sauces. We're not backed. I don't feel like I'm backed into any corner. So this is kind of like my fun thing. I don't have to make the same brisket every single day for the rest of my life. Like we could do some cool stuff.
Well, I want to give a big thank you to these guys for showing up. Tyson Cole, Aaron Franklin. Thank you guys for showing up, for having us here in your house.